You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
The military's new mandatory test could backfire. Big time, based on an article by Sabrina Hark. Congress funded the Blunder and called it strength. Hegseth and Gen. Caine went to the Senate to plead for help after the Pentagon burned through money, depleted missile stockpiles, and blew through more than $37 billion in an Iran war the source describes as unauthorized and escalating. The House response was not restraint. It was a $1 trillion defense bill that rewarded the mess, absorbed Trump's agenda, and handed more power to the same people who created the shortfall. Howard chose war, then demanded a blank check. The institutional power here is not confusion. It is deliberate political choice. Trump made the war decisions. Hegseth sold them. House Republicans financed them. That matters because the story is not about an overstretched Pentagon stumbling into crisis on its own. The crisis was manufactured by people who wanted the escalation, then treated the consequences as a budgeting problem for someone else to solve. The money ran out because the war ran on impulse, spectacle, and false assurance. Congress didn't check the damage. It ratified it. The House had one job if it intended to preserve even basic accountability, refused to write a bigger check until the damage was explained. Instead, it approved an unprecedented $1 trillion military package. That is not oversight. It is collaboration. Republicans did not merely overlook incompetence. They codified it. They rewarded Hegseth after his claim that Iran's military had been destroyed and made combat ineffective was exposed as false. They kept funding the people who misrepresented the war while refusing to correct the record. This is how institutional cowardice works, that turns obvious failure into additional authority. The rebrand was the point. The bill did more than increase military spending. It codified Hegseth's Department of War rebrand, slipped in Trump's voter suppression bill, and blocked hormone therapy coverage for gender care. That combination is the message. Militarism, voter suppression, and gender policing are not separate priorities accidentally bundled together. They are a single political project. Concentrate force, narrow democracy, and stage moral panic as governance. Hegseth's testosterone obsession belongs in that same bucket. It is not a defense policy. It is ideological performance dressed up as readiness. The point is not to make the military more effective. The point is to make it more obedient, more aggressive, and more culturally useful to the authoritarian fantasy driving this administration. Pseudoscience as discipline. Hegseth's annual testosterone screening plan for troops over 30 is presented as a readiness measure. In practice, it is another attempt to turn the military into a laboratory for macho control. The source lays out the contradiction clearly. Artificial testosterone can bring infertility, blood risks, and cognitive downsides, and the relationship between testosterone and performance is not the cartoonish more is better logic Hegseth is peddling. That is the key political fact. He is not following the science. He is using biology as branding. This is what happens when a Fox News worldview gets administrative power. Instead of sober judgment, you get symbolic cruelty, pseudo-medical signaling, and a chain of command that mistakes chest thumping for competence. The real story is domestic. The source is strongest when it connects Hegseth's appetite for violence abroad with what the administration wants at home. The same apparatus that bombs civilians, flatters war criminals, and strips away restraint is not preparing for national defense. It is preparing for domestic coercion. That is why the article's power analysis matters more than its most heated language. The danger is not simply that Hegseth is reckless. It is that Republicans are choosing to build a military culture compatible with authoritarian rule, loyal over lawful, aggressive over disciplined, and useful against civilians if Trump decides to use it that way. The pattern. This is not mismanagement with some unfortunate rhetoric around it. It is a governing pattern. Create chaos, inflate the threat, demand more power, and then use that power to punish enemies, suppress voters, and legitimize brutality. The Democrats in Congress, where they have leverage, should treat this as what it is, not a normal defense dispute, but a test of whether the state is being repurposed for authoritarian ends. The people authorizing the war, the spending, and the surveillance-style discipline are the same people selling the public a fantasy of strength. What they are actually building is a machine that confuses domination with security and obedience with order. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article. With the automated voice of Kristen, thanks for listening.